Handicappers Report, brought to you by the Clubhouse Racebook, 711 Central Avenue, Albany, and CapitalOTBBet.com, the premier online wagering site in New York State. CapitalOTBBet.com. Sign up today.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Handicappers for alongside Seth Merrow. I am Anthony Mormino. Another January day when I didn't have to shovel, which makes it a good day. It is a big day at the fairgrounds. Seth will be getting to that card in just a moment. And, you know, they did it a couple years ago. One of the things I truly like about the fairgrounds meet is they kind of made it explicit. A day in January, a day in February, and a day in March. I think they bundle it that all the graded stakes races they have are run on these 3 days, which, you know, all take a line for their turf racing, their 3-year-old fillies, the 3-year-old colts. And today starts off their first of the three big days and a 14-race card. And you said you have Joe Christofek on at the top of the next hour. So he'll have
we'll be talking to Joe, of course, the paddock
view.
Commentator at Churchill, and then this time of year down at the fairgrounds. So get some of his thoughts on some of the stakes action. Get a little update on the weather, too. The weather's looking a little dicey for the turf races. And then we'll also be joined by Jeremy Plonk, his first visit of the year, with the countdown to the Crown. Always fun to check in with Jeremy in the months leading up to the Derby and the Triple Crown, and this will be his first visit. We'll talk 3-year-olds overall at this point in the season, but also he'll take a look at the Lecomte as well. Oh, and let me remind folks also, a little bit of fun out here in the Clubhouse Racebook today. Don't forget, we have a bankroll. I'll have $300 to play during the afternoon on behalf of our bankroll team. If you come down between 11:30 and 2, you can put your name in the bin. We'll select the team at 2 o'clock. I'll start playing at about 1, go from about 1 to 5 with the bankroll. Hopefully we'll juice that up nicely, and at the end of the day, the bankroll team splits up the proceeds. So should be a fun afternoon here at the Clubhouse Racebook, 711 Central Avenue in Albany.
Well, good luck to you. It's
a lot of good action. I mean, fairgrounds this time of year, Oaklawn. I love Oaklawn, so we'll probably take a little look over there as well. Some Aqueduct. It should be fun.
It should be. One thing you talked about, Joe, at Churchill is these update photos of the building going on at Churchill Downs. It's like, oh my goodness. Yeah, I guess they're going to have it done by May 5th or May 4th, whatever they got to have it done by. But, you know, I've seen a lot of construction in my lifetime. If I was betting, I'd be like, oh, no, you're not going to make it. But with such a hard date, you're like, they're going to make it, but you're like, oh, my goodness.
Yeah, and that is a hard day.
Oh, yeah, there's no...
The big day there.
No.
I haven't seen any, speaking of that, updated pictures of Belmont recently.
No, that one flyover.
I'm curious there as well.
I think all of us are stumped that, why? A tunnel? This is pretty long for a tunnel. I mean, that's all they've said. I'm sure they're doing other, but they're like, it's just a tunnel. Why can't we race on that? But we were talking with the director earlier this morning. The Belmont spring summer stakes racing is out, and they basically did away with. I read Dave Granning's article. They basically did away with 5 stakes races that they've only kind of built up the last 3 to 5 years. I mean,
when you read
the
names
Manila,
of those,
the Flat Out, the Saginaw. I thought the biggest one was the Mother Goose going to the fall for 2 reasons. One is, I think it's a death knell for the race. That's A. B, a couple of years ago, when the Coaching Club American Oaks fell out of favor at a distance of ground, and the Acorn was kind of poo-pooed because it was for sprinters, the Mother Goose was probably one of the, when the Kentucky Oaks started coming up and became the premier one, the Mother Goose was like, I thought always kind of next, even ahead of the Alabama, mostly because of distance. 3-year-old fillies going 9 furlongs.
Weren't the 3 you mentioned kind of known as the New York Philly Triple Crown? Wasn't that the series, the Acorn, the Mother Goose, and the Coaching Club American Oaks?
Yes, and they came in.
And there was a New York Philly Triple Crown, and then there was the Kentucky Oaks, the Black-Eyed Susan, and the third one of that was
the Oaks.
The Kentucky Coaching Club. Yeah.
Well, for a long time, the 4 American Classic races were the Triple Crown and the Coaching Club American Oaks. The Coaching Club American Oaks was the lone classic in the United States.
Didn't I want to say Calumet filly win
Devona
both?
Dale won both of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, she won both of them. And when the Triple Crown production company started, they made Naira move it to the Triple Tiara. They, obviously licensing everything. And now it's completely broken up. And I have to say, I don't like the Acorn not being a mile. I think it was I can't think of a very prestigious mile, 16th race, but a one-turn mile for 3-year-old fillies, I thought was a nice crossover between some sprinters trying to get there and a really prestigious race. And I was surprised they changed the distance. But we'll see. And they moved the Acorn and Just a Game from Saturday to Friday at Belmont. I was thinking maybe Fox wanted 2 grade ones on their coverage or something, because that doesn't make sense to me. It was such a great Saturday card.
It doesn't make sense to me because I've been down there on that weekend, and Friday is not a big day.
Never. I was telling people, going back 20 years ago, when I was working for 13, we went down when the Triple Crown was on the line. I was telling Dan, our director, I remember Storm Flag Flying finishing last when we were up at the top of the stretch to do the news, and she's flailing behind. It never works. New York is just not interested in Friday. So I was thinking, having that knowledge, I was thinking maybe that's a TV thing.
Yeah, that's probably a good call. Probably
because running like 6 or 8 Grade 1 races on Saturday, I thought was one of the best promotion ideas you could run with. Almost halfway to the Breeders' Cup. I thought it was fantastic. But the changes were announced. They're up there on websites to find. But
juggled up some purses as well, and then this was
changed it around.
This was the Belmont stakes schedule, and then if you read the Dave Grenig article, it mentioned we may juggle some things up at Saratoga too. And now, given what they've done at Belmont, I'll be interested to see what that means
involves
for Saratoga.
We'll see. I did think they overpaid for those 3-year-old turf races. It didn't seem
it went to like $750,000,
right,
and the quote was, "It's still good money." I totally agree. It's still very good money.
I'll be honest. I think $400,000 is pretty high because they haven't really established themselves, and good for the Euros. They just come over and pick them
I
off.
think it's a fun series, but
you like the
I do
3-year-old turf division. Now, are you as enamored with the fillies that do it, or more aligned with the Colts?
It's more the boys. It doesn't seem as intriguing on the filly side of things. Okay. But the boys, I say it all the time. Part of the reason I like it starts the beginning of the year. You in Florida, you get some of those 3-year-old turf stakes, and it seems to go through the year. At virtually every venue in the country seems to have at least one of these nice 3-year-old turf stakes races. So it's kind of fun all year long. It's more fun if in that early portion of the year, 2 or 3 or 4 of them kind of
show themselves,
establish themselves, and then the rest of the year becomes a lot of, like last year, I don't know whether it kind of.
Well, I think sometimes the idea is if that doesn't happen, it just kind of becomes like unsuccessful dirt horses trying to find something, which is fine. But when you find like a legitimate 3-year-old who's a turfer, whether it's a Manila or a Lure or a Paradise Creek, who you're like, no, these are outstanding turf horses. You're right. The buzz becomes more significant than, as you said, what we kind of experienced last year, where the Euros came over, picked it off at Belmont, and then picked it off at Saratoga, etc. That's a little bit different. You ready for your 14th race card? I mean, we understand the business model of it, and we understand that we're not 25 years old anymore, but man, 6.5 hours, just the post times. So you're looking at easily 7.5 hours at a racetrack. It kicks off at 1 o'clock our time, but noon down in New Orleans. So 14 race card. As I said, I think they did a good job. And I know they did this, they moved it a couple of years ago where they really make these, and the spacing is obviously perfect. It's like 4 weeks apart.
When you said they did a good job and they do a good job, I thought you were going to bring up the PPs were out last weekend.
Well, they've always done that. Yeah, they have been like 5-6 days out. I noticed years ago with like the LeComp, you can get the PPs on Monday, and of course it always then beckons the question, Well, how come nobody else can do this? Well, and I've said this before, Seth, the same reason they don't want penny breakage or time the races accurately. They don't want to, no matter what they say. Like I noticed in the Pat McKenna thing, he didn't mention and we're working towards penny breakage for you folks. No. 14 races today, 1 o'clock our time it kicks off, and they're going to start with 3-year-old fillies, Louisiana breds, going 6 furlongs.
I have a 4, 3, 6, and 1. Much more than ready on top for me. First couple of starts of the career, nice improvement start 1 to start 2. Start 1 was back in June at Delaware, so a little bit of a layup. And a lot of times these lightly raced types can come back and be a little bit improved. This one didn't improve a little bit. There was a lone sibling called Ready that is 0 for 4, but does have a third place finish in there. But I thought the first couple of starts of the career were okay. 4 Harper in the second spot. There's a sibling called Drina's Boy, or Dreama's Boy, I guess. Second, then fourth, then fifth, and second, then first. So the first 5 starts of the career, a couple of seconds and a win. Another sibling called Tightly Twisted that won in the third career start. So again, a little bit of win early or early talent with the siblings. So 4 Harper in the mix, and then Bayou Beauty. This is the first first foal from the dam, but the dam herself won in the second career start. This horse took some action in debut and showed a little punch before fading. That maybe bodes well, comes as an education, and now they had some blinkers today, so Bayou Beauty, I think, can be a player as well. Not a race that anything is jumping off the page at me and giving me a whole lot of confidence, but in the opener, I'm 4, 3, 6, and 1.
Yeah, I used to see his name pop up. I see him, Jerry Delhomme. Is he really? I think he's related to the NFL quarterback.
I think you're right.
I think I remember Jake Delhomme. I think when he was having that great run with the Panthers, it came up in there into the second race because he's from there, so it fits into the idea. On to the second race. It is Open Company. 3-year-old fillies made in the special weights, going 6.
3, 7, 4, and 6. Super explosive, as the name would make you guess, with the O in super. Live Oak Plantation runner for Mark Casse. By Gun runner. Hasn't quite lived up to that win early sire, but the dam produced a sibling called Rapper Rule, second, then third, then fifth, and then a couple of wins and starts 4 and 5. We'll see if this one can kind of live up to that. I will say there were some other siblings that were not win early, however, but I'll give this one, another shot. They paid a decent amount of money. Gun runner on top. I'll use Super Explosive off an improved performance last time. Second slot, we'll take a look at Arden's Assault. If you listen enough, you know I love Violence as a sire of first-time runners. It's Brad Cox with a Violence firster, but the siblings weren't much, and so I debated putting this one on top. The workouts are okay. It is Brad Cox. I just couldn't pull the trigger with looking at the siblings. And then Evergrande, sibling called Ledbetter, that was 4th in debut and won the second career start, albeit at Timonium, so take that for what it's worth. But it's an Uncle Mo firster from Steve Asmussen from Cortland Farms. I think you have some win early connections along with a little bit of win early breeding. So for me, in the second at Fairgrounds, 3, 7, 4, and 6.
If they didn't run exclusively on weekends, I would do a road trip to Timonium.
Timonium?
For that
I
fair,
like
but
the fair.
It's
yeah,
Friday,
the
Saturday,
fair
Sunday,
well.
Friday, Saturday, Sunday. If they ran on a Monday or Tuesday, I would go in a heartbeat. If they went on a Wednesday or Thursday, I'd try and work something out with work because I think it's fantastic. I mean, but they've kind of really truncated to the horse racing part. If you're not familiar, it's the Maryland State Fair around Labor Day as Saratoga's wrapping up. They run the thoroughbreds in that bull ring, and Dave Rodman will call out past the ice cream stand, etc. It's
Ferris wheel in the background.
Ferris wheel. But they've really moved to a time where it'd be less convenient. Also, obviously, number 8, the owners must be a fan of Guns N' Roses, taking Sweet Child O' Mine in there. So somebody a little older owning number 8, making the debut today. On to the third. We're going to go Rudolph Ground with 3-year-olds. These are maiden special weights going 1:16 miles.
2, 6, 7, and 8 for me. Spielman on top. A little more experience than the rest of the field, which is never something I, chase in these maiden specials. Experience does count, but after a while, it starts to make you a little bit leery. But you look at the numbers this horse fires. typically they're a little bit better than this field. So, these types can eventually find that field that they're going to get through. That may be the case today for Spielman. Cagliostro in the second spot, Cherie DeVoe runner. I thought ran okay in the debut. Ran okay. I'm looking at what this horse did, the number comparatively speaking to this bunch. In the debut at the end of the Saratoga meet for Cherie DeVoe, was up and was kind of in the mix and then faded a little bit late. Took a little action at 7-2. I think this horse could be interesting. As I mentioned before, horses like this lately race 2-year-olds, even 3-year-olds into the 4-year-old season. If there's a break like that, sometimes they come back improved. And if this one does, Cagliostro is a player. And then Odds On Tony goes out second time for Ken McPeak. Second out for McPeak is a good angle. And then this is another one that looks like might have been out, got a good education in the debut and can build on that. So third race at Fairgrounds, 2, 6, 7,
now,
8.
Before you turn the page, one thing that intrigues me in the modern day, and we talked about this, I think, during Saratoga with Cagliostro. No one uses this term anymore, buck shins.
Oh, yeah, you brought that up.
This seems like the type of run. He's coming back and running on January 21st. He has workouts. Let me do the count here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right. Once you've run, the maximum workouts the form puts in is 6. So they've maxed it out on December 8th. So we can't, if there was only 5, I would say their first workout. So there's probably more. So he was really only on the sideline for a brief amount of time. And it always intrigues me because you would think, I actually like the debut. I think the debut is strong.
I'll also mention
they would have run again.
The winner that day was Champion's Dream. That's the Cassie horse who ran second in the Pasco on the return last week.
So I always wondered if this is a prime example where I'd like to ask Sherry, a term that you never hear Dave writing about or anything. Was this simply a buck shins incident? And the reason I bring it up is, and for if you're in the audience you're not familiar with, that was considered to be like the best injury you could ever have. It was so minor. Trainers never worried about it except you missed some running for like 60 days. But it was the one like, your horse is going to have an ailment. Which one do you want? I want buck shins. So that's just, it intrigues me. It also intrigues me that it's kind of gone the way of the dodo bird that, like when Joe gets on there, he's going to say, Sherry told me at buck shins. That's not a sentence I'm expecting to hear later on today. So that intrigues me.
There likely was something because
sure.
they paid almost $400,000 in an April 2-year-old sale, and the debut was okay. So, yeah.
And it's a short sideline. So it just, I'd like to know it, but it doesn't happen. On to the 4th race, continuing with the maiden special weights. We're back to the 3-year-old fillies, going 6.
I went 2, 9, 4, and 7. I looked at the 10. There was a sibling called Sourcing Network that was 0 for 2, but was a near miss second in the debut, albeit in a field of 4. So I looked at the Asmussen runner, the 10. If somebody's out there, I'm not going to argue. But I put Merlaza on top for Brad Cox. There is a full sibling called Gold Standards. Second, then third, and then ripped off 3 straight wins and starts 3, 4, and 5. I think that bodes well, and a Brad Cox runner first out, obviously. Particularly Brad Cox. I think I read last night Brad is 12 for his last 19 down at Fairgrounds.
Yeah.
That's insane. So Brad Cox on a roll and can add to that this afternoon, obviously. Superlux in the second slot. Paid almost $750,000 for this horse at Keeneland back in 2021. It's Steve Asmussen. The horse has been working up at Oaklawn, and that attracts me because these are the days when trainers and connections on these big days like to get these 3-year-olds started perhaps on what they think is going to be a big career. There's a sibling called Mitigation that was 0 for 6, but a couple of seconds and a couple of thirds as well. So Superlux is interesting. And then LJ's Emma in the 3rd spot. Again, another one of those where the siblings weren't winners, but by Into Mischief, I just couldn't ignore this one. A couple of workouts underneath kind of signal this horse may be intriguing this afternoon as well. Luis Saez in for the afternoon. He'll pick up the mount there. The 4th at Fairgrounds, 2, 9, 4, and 7.
And as you looked at this race, I mean, this is kind of like, I know this is the 3rd biggest day at the Fairgrounds, But this is kind of like the maiden special weight we expect to see at Saratoga on Travers Day. I mean, you look at these. The 2, the 3. How about the 4? You know, the 8,
Dallas
the 9.
Stewart's horse. The 5 is interesting.
It's like a killer's. And I was thinking about this, and because I looked this up once. Uncle Mo is clearly the best one that ever debuted on the undercard of the Travers. And then I saw, talking about extensions here, Boys at Toscanova, who was the first horse that I vividly remember jumping off to the Breeders' Cup. Remember, he won the Hopeful, and Dutrow was like, "We'll see you at the Breeders' Cup," and everybody was like, "Richard, I'm making the jump." And Boys at Toscanova just passed away. And talking about 10 years flying by, right? Dutrow's
maybe
suspension is over, right? That's the quickest 10 years. Not for him, I'm sure, but for me, taking a 6-year-old to a 16-year-old, when I read it in the Blood Horse, I was like, wow. Be interesting to see where that goes. And what's interesting for him with me is, when I started doing this in 98, he was, if you look on Equibase, I'm sure it's true, he just started to run horses in New York. And he got on one of those super trainer runs almost immediately with the claimers. I mean, he was, I should have looked that up. Maybe I will at the break to see when he won his first
One
NYRA
of the
race.
most notable things for me was winning 2 days in a row. What was it, Saratoga and then down at Monmouth?
No. I think it's Golden. I'll look it up.
You're right,
at
it
Delaware
was Golden
and Monmouth. And I always said that he ran on back-to-back days in those second-tier 3-year-old races. And the thing I said that always sticks out is on the second day, he ran better. You know, it's only a great story to me that he ran third on the Friday stakes race or Saturday at Delaware, and then the next day shows up at Monmouth Park and is runner-up. But I thought Golden Missile or something, but
that sounds good.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure that horse. That's definitely a name that horse did something, but that may be the horse.
To the 5th race, we get to the turf, and you can't bring this up with Joe, but this is another thing that I hate about our sport. Now, sometimes you run about distances because you can't quite get the angle or whatever, but I've always said this. Somewhere in the stretch at the fairgrounds, between about a mile and a 16th and about a mile and an 1/8 is exactly a mile and a 16th. There's no reason they don't run them at exactly a mile and a 16th at the fairgrounds. I've never understood why. I can understand a mile and an 1/8. It's not as long as it is. They run a little bit farther at a mile because they don't want the short run. But somewhere in that stretch at the fairgrounds is exactly a mile and 16th.
Are you saying they move the finish line?
No.
Or the gate's where it is because that's where the opening in the fence is.
My best friend is a carpenter. I can get him down there changing in about an hour. But let's not hear the old gate.
But yeah, okay, that's fair enough. I'm sure that's why they do it though, and I think it's more than just the fence. But you're right, whatever it is, they can.
And once again, it gets down to we can't time them greatly, and now we can't measure it greatly. This is 2023. We got to do better. But I always wonder that. Like I said, someplace here is exactly a mile 60. And I have looked it up. It's not easy to find. Well, what is it? Is it plus 12 feet? Is it minus 37 feet? What is it?
Oh, yeah. Well, that all is about this. Yeah. So it's the 5th, the Cranston.
Yes.
Again, with the expected weather, if it's on dirt, I'm going to go 2, 7, and 4. On dirt, I'll go 2, 7, and 4. But I'll handicap for the turf 4, 3, 6, and 7. I'm going to put Carpe Venom on top. Came in from Southern California last time and kind of clunked. So that doesn't thrill me by any means. Ran in the Blushing KD and clearly went backwards. But because of that, we're getting the 8-1. Raylu Gutierrez, who started the career right up here at Finger Lakes and then spent the summer at Saratoga, kind of a fun guy to follow. He's having a very good meet, and so he's back on board.
He's good on Twitter, too.
I've seen that.
Yes.
I'll give this one another shot at what probably will be an okay price because The Southern California races were okay. We'll see, but it's off the latest. It is a question mark. Lake Lucerne in the second spot. This one also comes out of the Blushing Katy, but ran very well. Close up third in there, and I think that bodes well for this afternoon. And Wave of Goodness also comes out of the Blushing Katy, and this one ran a close up second. So I have a couple in there that did run well, as opposed to the top pick that didn't. But again, I'll look for a rebound. That last race just looks like something I'm hoping of an aberration. In the fifth, I have it 4, 3, 6, and 7.
On to the sixth, we have 3-year-old fillies, maiden special weights on the dirt, going a mile and 16.
9, 7, 5, and 4. Grapes for Eloise on top. Tommy Amos runner that has put in 2 performances so far. A little bit of improvement, start 1 to start 2, and moved from a maiden claimer into a maiden special. So you don't usually see improvement like that, albeit the maiden claimer was for 150 at Churchill. But again, showed nice improvement on the move down to Fairgrounds and this kind of company last time. And Tommy Amos having a pretty good meet. Ghostly Girl in the second spot. The Ken McPeak runner hasn't been spectacular in the first 4 starts of the career, but again, it's one of those where you look at what this horse is typically doing as compared to the horses in this bunch, excuse me, that have run, and I think Ghostly Girl is going to fit with this bunch this afternoon. Comparative, you draw a line through the last race where the horse lost the rider, but do note that the horse went off at 6-5 that day. Brad Cox, Godolphin, first 3 starts of the career, again, showed a little bit of promise, and compared to this bunch, fits pretty snugly. So another one of those races where nothing is really jumping out at me, but in the sixth, I'm 9, 7, 5, and 4.
On Christmas, we host, and I cook, but I was trying to, and unfortunately, the NFL dominated, which my family loves. I could have gotten away with just the NBA, but I was hoping that I could be unbusy to find the Tom Amos interview, because he was so great, which was no surprise. But it was no surprise that he was good on television. But the stories he had, I will tell our audience this, because I'm sure Tom's doing something else. But I'm sure he's good with his time because he understands television. But I want to get a red cone. So when he comes on next year, we just bring it out. Our man from Chicago called. He wants you to keep it because he was so great for television last summer. On to one more before the break. 3-year-olds going 6 furlongs on the dirt.
We'll have to do
that. Here you go. He will die. He'd fall over. God, that is great.
Like that. I have a 3, 5, 1, and 9. First Defender on top. Quality Road. Last year, Quality Road, as a sire of debut runners, 70 first-time starters, 15 wins, 10 seconds, 13 thirds. Just really good first time out of the box. And the dam has produced a sibling called Win With Pride, third and then won. Another one, Alfar Quad, I guess is how you would pronounce it. Ran in the UK, 4th, 3rd, and then won a couple of starts. So win early, top and bottom. Steve Asmussen can have him ready. Gaff Leone, who won his 2,000th career victory at Gulfstream yesterday, on board here at the fairgrounds this afternoon. Second slot, we'll take a look at City Knights, another Asmussen runner. There was a sibling called Arcan that won the first 2 starts of the career. City of Light is pretty good as a sire, first-time runners. 31 last year, 5 of those hit the exacta. So not spectacular numbers, but certainly good enough to take a look at this one under the tutelage of Asmussen and put it in the mix. And Pinfire by Bolt d'Oro, that one also a very good sire of debut runners. Now, again, I realize this one isn't a debut runner, but you're looking at that win early potential. This one did show nice improvement, start 1 to start 2, and I think with that win early type breeding, can only move forward. So in the 7th, I have a 3, 5, 1, and 9.
And in case it flies under the radar screen, just a couple things here. Quality Road is $200,000 to go to. I don't think he gets enough attention because I'm looking these up. I didn't have them memorized. Trust me. Gun Runner is $1.25. Uncle Mower 150. Now those are 2 that we talk about all the time at the top of the stallion. And of course, Into Mischief is the band leader at 250. So I'm thinking I would go out on a limb and say that Quality Road is the second most expensive United States stallion, putting him ahead of. Well, I have to look up Tappet. Tappet is the only one that could join that list, in my opinion. But he is higher than Gun Runner and Uncle Mo, and I don't think we talk about him as a stallion,
right,
indicating 200K. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, more stakes action from the fairgrounds.
Capital OTB is now streaming live on Roku. The RTN Racing channel on Roku lets you watch OTB TV live through your Roku device or your Amazon Fire Stick, rather than being limited to computers and mobile devices, which means you can now watch OTB live wherever you are. Simply open Roku, scroll to find the RTN channel, then click on OTB TV. OTB TV on Roku. Try it now.
This is a championship meet. All the best jockeys in the world are here, and I'm excited to ride against them. You get to watch some really incredible, talented athletes out there.
To us, it's a place to be in the winter.
I love Gulfstream Park because of the racing.
The palm trees, the beach is right here. The horse racing is some of the best in the country.
Come on!
I want sales reports on my desk by Monday.
Whoops. My bad.
Love racing? RTN brings you every live simulcast on your home television, plus live video streaming and race replays on your PC and mobile devices. To order, visit rtn.tv. RTN, a breed apart.
And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, as my partner is looking up the future pool. So this is pool number 2, right? So
no.
Don't they do one
Three.
at the 3?
I think it's 3.
So the future wagers are up, and I've said it before. For me, not one of my huge angles in the sport, because I rarely find the price to be right. I think we saw the field is 2-1. Wagering continues through.
The shortest price on a single is Forte at 6-1. And it ends tomorrow at 6 o'clock.
So if that's your cup of tea, it's that time of year, and shop for a price, get it, and knock it out of the park on May 6th. May 6th, I think, is Derby Day this year. We're on to the 8th race, taking place about 4:30 our time, about 1 mile and a 16th, the Colonel Bradley.
Again, with the weather, potentially if they're on the dirt, 2, 9, and 6, 2, 9, and 6. I'll stick with the 2 on turf, 2, 7, 3, and 6. Price talk. Comes off a synthetic try at Turfway in the Prairie Bayou. Had the lead late and then got caught and ran a close-up third. But before that was on the turf at Remington and was a nice winner with a solid number. Florent Giraud was on board that day. He's back on board again today. I think this horse is live for Brad Cox in here, who, again, may have a very big day, continue to have a big day down at Fairgrounds, where he's having a really great meet. Gray's Creek in the second spot, coming off a nice win on the synthetic up at Turfway, but has good turf form as well. And I think if this horse runs a big effort with Javier Castellano on board, might add a little bit of value to the play. And 2 Emmys. Nice record down here at the Fairgrounds. Overall on the Fairgrounds turf, 9 starts, 6 exacta finishes, 3 wins, 3 seconds. In the Colonel Bradley last year was a near-miss third as the 5-2 favorite. Last time won a turf stake at Hawthorne as the even money favorite, so comes in good form, you would think, off of that, but no, that was back in June. So that's going to be the question mark off the layoff. And the workouts aren't necessarily touting anything, but came in off a little bit of a layoff last year to run that close-up third. So I looked at that, looked at the overall Fairgrounds record, and I kind of was willing to give the benefit of the doubt to the connections, despite the fact that the workouts, aren't jumping off the page. But I think 2 Emmys is going to be playable in here. In the 8th at Fairgrounds, 2, 7, 3, and 6.
And in the 9th race, since half of the field is by Tappet, $185.
Oh.
So I feel very comfortable saying Quality Road is the second most expensive United States-based stallion. Optional claimers in for 80, 2L, mile 16th on the dirt.
We didn't mention also, I said it during the week, but for people who tune in during the weekend, congratulations to West Point and all the folks involved with Flightline, because Flightline on Monday over in Europe was named the world's best racehorse, which is decided by handicappers, and it's a weighting, and as I understand it, he was 5 pounds ahead of Baid, which was pretty good, and they put him comparable to Frankel, I guess.
Yes, that's the stuff I saw. Did you see the picture of John Sadler in the Churchill chair in the war room?
Oh, I didn't see that.
Yeah, pretty. I'm sure. I actually kind of know John going back 86 in time. I can't wait to see him again to discuss what it must have been like, because obviously he's a history buff if he took that route. But on their way to getting the Longines Horse of the Year, he stopped over in Britain
very good.
for a moment.
Yeah,
so,
I saw Terry Finley was over there. So again, congratulations.
Big thing.
I always like to root for the West Point guys because they're all, are locally based essentially, but partners all over the country, obviously. They were involved.
And he's always been good to the exceptional to Capital OTB.
Oh, yeah.
Going back a long time.
Terry and Tom Bellhouse.
Yeah,
and
exceptional.
Now Jason Blewett. And so congratulations to the whole team there. And if you're not familiar, it's handed out by the International Federation of Horse Racing Authorities. And as I say, based on a handicapping of the entire year worldwide. So congratulations. Ninth at Fairgrounds, 2, 5, 6, and 4. Up with Banishing on top. Brendan Walsh runner that broke the maiden pretty nicely in the second career start. The move from Churchill to the Fairgrounds, solid number. Does look like the one to beat, and maybe establishes himself as a 3-year-old that could be a player going forward. And again, on these big days this time of the year, these are the kind of races that can move some 3-year-olds into consideration for Stakes Company moving forward. Determinedly goes out for Mark Cassie. Speaking of Stakes Company, tried a stake last time in the Gun Runner, ran third as the 4 to 5 favorite, so now steps back to a more proper non-winners at 2. Invulnerable in the third spot. A couple of decent starts so far at Churchill and Oaklawn for this one. Comes in with some bullet works for Joe Sharp and looks like another player in this currently field of 6. I have it 2, 5, 6, and 4.
On to the 10th. 3-year-olds going a mile to 16th.
1, 8, 3, and 6. I will put Fight and Ready on top. 4, among others, our friends at West Point, goes out for Dallas Stewart. Again, another one of those nice improvements, start 1 to start 2, the move from Churchill to the Fairgrounds. And given what we saw in that race at the Fairgrounds, I think this horse could be primed for a very good effort this afternoon. Second slot, we'll take a look at Mobster. Going out for Mark Cassie off a series of improving numbers. Best number was last time when the horse was moved from a sprint to this 2-turn mile and a 16th distance. So I think that bodes well for today. And then Presider in the third spot. Interested to see what this horse goes off at. We're looking at 6 to 1, and off the last start, I think and I hope we'll get that. But the start just before was pretty good at 47 to 1. Just missed down at the Fairgrounds, going the 1-turn mile. Down at Churchill, going the 1-turn mile. I'm looking to get back to that and hoping that last was something of an aberration. And I'm also hoping we get a little bit of value, at least at 6 to 1. But in the 10th, I have it 1, 8, 3, and 6.
And to show you how much the game has changed, we're up to the 11th race, which, by the way, starts the All-Stakes Pick 4, ladies and gentlemen. The Duncan Kenner on the turf sprinting.
Should it go on the dirt? 10, 11, 2, and 3. 10, 11, 2, and 3. And I'll stick with the 10 if it stays on the turf. 10, 4, 11, 2, and 3, and 5. And I give that many because the 10 and the 11 are also eligible. So again, 10, 4, 11, 2, 3, 5. Number 10, Surveillance, too deep on the also eligible list. Clearly, there's more dirt form than turf. But this is a bona fide sprinter, and I'm just going to stick with this one to be that good if they do get in and elect to run on the turf. Again, if we get on the dirt, this one clearly stands out to me. But even on the turf, I think Surveillance. So we'll see if that one gets in. If not, Evan Singh in the second spot tends to come from out of it, and at these turf sprint distances, you're always up against it, but I think in the lane, this horse will be heard from. Then I'm going to go with Bango on the outside. Another one on the dirt is going to be very well met, but I think the Greg Foley runner will be interesting. Again, if in from the AEs and they stay. But if not, since I have named a couple of AEs, Maniwa is going to be intriguing. And I was watching a podcast earlier this week with Kevin Kilroy. He was one of the guests who works down at the fairgrounds. He said that he had talked to Wayne Catalano, and they really want to get to the turf with this horse. And he said if it does get moved to the dirt, they're going to look for another race. I find that incredible because Maniwa on the dirt is going to be very live in here. And again, that is kind of earlier this week, check and make sure that is the case if it does get moved to dirt. But I think either surface Maniwa is playable. So again, I'm going to go a little deep here because two of mine are AEs. 10, 4, 11, 2, 3, 5.
All right, getting the 3-year-old Phil series underway, the Silver Bullet Day.
5, 4, 7, and 3. I'll put Chop Chop on top. This horse is going to be a short-priced favorite. Had looked very good in the first couple of starts of the career, and then just missed against the presumptive champion Wonder Wheel in the Alcibiades, and then clunked as the favorite in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Filly. I think gets back on track here. The Alley's look is interesting off the maiden breaker, 2 back, and then a good try in Stakes Company last time, and Forest Chimes. This one's interesting. Nice little debut effort that maybe touts this one as one to keep our eyes on in here. In the 12th, the Silver Bullet Day, 5, 4, 7, and 3.
And the handicap division has the Louisiana at 1.16 miles.
5, 8, 7, and 2. I think this is a very contentious field. I think a lot of people are going to go with Zozos, and who knows, maybe Zozos will just prove to be, live up to the promise early in the career and be a nice 4-year-old now. But I thought, second start back, and let's see if this one proves himself today to be that special horse. Put that one right underneath. But I thought Happy American coming out of the win in the Tenacious was going to be a little bit playable at maybe a price. And then in the third spot, Forza d'Oro, who I think coming out of the third in the Tenacious as the beaten favorite, was intriguing as well. I think it's a fun race. If you get past Zozos, if Zozos does tend to be more competitive than I think the odds might indicate in here. I have it 5, 8, 7, and 2.
And the 14th and final, 7:30 our time, 3-year-olds in the LeComp. And I was wondering, how many 7-figure horses break their maiden at Turfway?
I have it 7, 1, 2, and 5. I put Instant Coffee on top. Al Goldrunner has run very well in 2 of the 3 starts. They bookend, maybe a little bit of a disappointing finish behind Forte, but followed it up in the Kentucky Jockey Club. So Al Gold following up a nice 3-year-old season with Cyberknife, I think has Instant Coffee to fill that void. I'm really intrigued to see what Echo Again does. Boy, that win at Saratoga was so impressive and just has not lived up to that. I'll put the horse to bounce back potentially. And then Dennington coming out the third in the Smarty Jones for Ken McPeak, I think can be interesting as well. So for me, in the LeComp, 7, 1, 2, and 5.
All right, take our final break. When we come back, the Big A.
This is a championship meet. All the best jockeys in the world are here, and I'm excited to ride against them.
We back.
And you get to watch some really incredible, talented athletes out there.
To us, it's a place to be in the winter.
I love Gulfstream Park because of the racing.
The palm trees, the beach is right here. The horse racing is some of the best in the country.
A lot of good horses come out of here. And if you want to go to the next level, Gulfstream Park was the place to come.
I remember the first time I came to Gulfstream, it was like this big fairy tale place. All the history. And all these great horses, trainers, jockeys. It was everything I ever dreamed of.
Welcome back to the Handicappers Report. Let's jump over to New York Racing now and their opener on this Saturday afternoon. State-bred maiden claimers going 3/4 of a mile.
And the first thing, that some days you just, right or wrong is an afterthought. I have to tell you, when I went over this card, it was like, for me, the first time on hockey skates, going skating. There was many races here that I just felt like I did not know where to go, which doesn't happen very often. And the first race is emblematic of that. My selections are 7, 5, and 1. And I have to tell you, the 2 and the 3, I couldn't see the morning line prices of 4 and 3 to 1 on the 2 of them. So usually that's good news for me. And I started looking, and Chief Engineer, and I have to just say that it's mostly because of the early speed and the outside. I mean, you look at the final running positions, most times there's not a lot to hang your hat on, but a couple races back did run well to finish second. That was a little bit before Thanksgiving. Number 5, Patrick the Great. Linda Rice, who I'm saying at this point will never serve that suspension. I'm like, the beat goes on, and she's in one of those runs where she's going very well. Second off, the Spa Claim, and for third, number 1. So 7, 5, 1 in the Big A's opener.
Race number 2, conditional claimers going 9 furlongs.
4, 1, 2 for these 2 L's, and Oscar Barrero III sends out BC Glory Days. That must have been the Doug Flutie years or something, I'm guessing. This was a long time ago claim, and we're 0 for about 8 since that $30,000 claim at Belmont's summer meet, ladies and gentlemen. But 2 races back, going the 1 turn, raced well. Now gets 2 turns today. From the rail, number 1, Kong Loves a Fight. I mean, 9 to 5 in here. I just didn't see that much separation from this horse and multiple other runners. I don't even have the 5 in my top 3, and I think he fits easily. Phoebe's Frosty, number 2 for Charlie Baker, takes on winners for the first time after breaking the maiden in the 7th career start. But 4, 1, 2.
Race number 3, again, state-bred maiden 25 claimers, 3/4 of a mile.
And in this race, I felt similarly as the opener, but I found a double-digit morning line price that I like. 9, 5, 7 going to the far outside. Cam Duke, Jim Ryerson's runner, as a recently turned 3-year-old, gets Lasix for the first time. I just looking for an outsider here. I mean, the buyer speed figures of the high 30s in the debut and the most recently run race. Offspring of Mastery going 6 again. This is probably the right level. I've mentioned before that there's obviously the New York bred maidens, but there's 2 levels for the claimers, maiden claimers, 40 and 25. This will be second time for the 25 on number 9. For a second, first time in for a tag, number 5, Mama's Gold at 7 to 5. Gets Lasix today from Mike Maker, making the 3-year-old debut, the offspring of Bolt de Oro. And for third, first off the claim, number 7, Central Love, getting Lasix today, 9, 5, and 7.
4th race, again, conditional claimers with the non-winners a 2 lifetime condition, 3/4 of a mile.
And I'll say this, I'm not going to do it, but it would be intriguing for me to learn this new world that we live in where 2-year-olds don't run on Lasix, then they get it as a 3-year-old performance, especially when they run like 4 or 5 times as a juvenile. You must feel like they're healthy.
Yeah.
So, etc. So 1, 4, 2. One time taking the chalk, Linda Rice's A Fleet Arlene draws the rail. First off the $30,000 claim. Linda going very well. This horse chips in from Churchill Downs. For second, number 4, Handle the Truth. This horse had a better than looks average as we near the end of the year at almost 70 to 1. And for third, number 2, Darn That Song, ships in off 2 races at Penn National. 1, 4, 2 in the 4th.
5th race, plain vanilla, $20,000 claimers will go the 1-turn mile.
And this race, as you go through it, I mean, even in their recent history, so many claims. Popular horses at the claim box, 1, 4, 8, and scheduled to break from the number 2 post position is Crypto Cash. Very nice effort on January 15th. That was the first start since October. Oscar Barrera dipped in for $8,000. Picked this horse off. Runs right back for the 20 today. Draws inside. Has good early speed going the mile. I think she'll be able to get good position as they head up that half-mile backstretch. For second, number 4, Air Show. Almost put this horse on top because in this day and age, I love this. Not only a -0, but this is it. Seth, we can't time races, but this horse was beat 86.5 lengths. How do you know? He got big. It's amazing. But in the old days, it would have just been distance. But 86.5 lengths. I'm throwing that race out clearly because 2 races back, won by daylight going the mile, the 1 turn. And I've said this before. I think in New York, now that we've had starter allowance for a while, they are much tougher than the claiming races. Now we're back there. For third, number 8, Optic Way, first off the claim, 148.
6th race on Saturday is a starter allowance. 6 furlongs is the distance.
And I don't know if we've noticed, but they are now regularly producing different starter allowance. So just something to pay attention. Just kind of like the maiden claimers, the 40 and the 25, we're having starter allowance because for years I just put like 4-year-olds and up starter allowance in my condition. Now we have different levels. So 5-2-1. Yes, sir, Robert. Big price in here. Ships in from Charlestown off of an impressive victory. But before then, had raced well at Laurel. So I'm taking this runner to bring the Maryland form here. If it was just West Virginia form, I might be more leery. But remember, you can always ask more questions at 15-1. For a second, number 2, David Jacobson's Ode Trouble. First off, the $25,000 claim for this 9-5 shot, making the 3rd start since October, has been razor sharp, regardless of whose barn runs out of. And for third, number 1, Quick Return, 5-2-1.
Race number 7, state bred optional claimer, non-winners of 2 other than 7 furlongs the trip.
7-4-2, folks. My selections in here, and excellent timing. I certainly wish we had it. Rob Atras sends out this runner. 1 start since the early part of fall. That was a runner-up position in December. Now comes back, has good early speed from the outside. And I looked at this race, boy, I have to think Kendrick Carmouche will have options on the front end with excellent timing. Number 4, woohoo, that's me. Takes blinkers off after trying it once. That is a pattern that I like with trainers. They tried it, it didn't work, we immediately get rid of it because this horse had raced well without the blinkers. And for third, Prince of Pharaohs. A $32,000 claim, was awful most recently. That was in a 1X open company. Toss that for me, 7-4-2.
Stakes action this afternoon in New York is the Interborough for fillies and mares 4-year-olds and up, traveling 7 furlongs.
What used to kick off New Year's Day in New York, really for my entire youth, but about, I don't know, about 5-7 years ago, they moved it to this slot. But it was the New Year's Day feature. I think the most famous story is, right, Tawi carried about $142 or something to win it. 2-5-3. You don't have to worry about that in here. Miss T2 going out for Mike McCarthy. Horse ships in out of a synthetic 3rd place effort at Turfway. But that was the 2nd start in this barn. 2nd start since January 6th. Talked about this before, how I love the 3rd start of a career or a cycle. So at 5-1, Eric Cancel gets my top pick. For second, 3-5 in your heart, Betsy Blue. Linda Rice's runner, recent winner of the Garland Roses, gives 4 pounds to my top pick. And for third, Piece of My Heart, Linda Rice's other runner, just won an allowance race in the slot, but looking for the upset, 2, 5, and 3.
Wrapping it up in the 9th today at Aqueduct, 416. p.m. maiden specials.
Etchinstone.
Going a mile. Yeah.
Etchinstone, this 416. 174, Slip Mahoney. 8-5 for Brad Cox. Gets Lasix for the 3-year-old debut. Third career start from the inside, the offspring of Arrogate. For second, number 7, Krupi going out, getting Lasix today. First start as a 3-year-old. Finished second after 3 consecutive third-place finishes. And the most recent effort, that was November 20th. And for third, Alternate Reality gets Lasix. Now, this, my more preferred running better than odds is Run Fast Tired. Charging Late, I'm less enamored with. That's why this 20-1 shot only gets third placing for me. 174. And as I see Yorkshire Prince, I was remembered that the horse's name was Yorkie Poo, right? Princess. That was the Saratoga. Entry mate was scratched, ran for purse only, and won by daylight. Never headed as the part of the number 1 entry. One of those moments. Yeah. This is one of those moments. And that is one spot where I give the powers that be leeway, though, because I don't think there's a perfect solution.
You're absolutely right.
You know, and that is not to be confused with the modern game situation. But that was a situation where, yeah, I'm sure all the people that had the one that day were like, I won. No, you got the conso, or you got the refund. But, you know, there's really nothing in that situation you can do.
Happy Stoopers that day.
Yeah. They're still around the track?
That's a good question. Yes, they are, because I've seen, yeah, they are. Yep.
You might want to let the people know, so there's an inside joke.
Oh, Stooper, for folks, yeah, well, I suppose that would be a term that maybe, Stoopers were folks who picked up tickets from the ground at the end of the day at the racetrack and hoped that somebody has dropped a winner. And when I was a kid, I did it just as an experiment one day up in Saratoga, and I wound up.
It is interesting to see grown men doing it.
$40.
And it usually happens with scratches and neophytes don't understand, and etc. And you know what they do, don't you? When they check the ticket, they tear it.
Oh, no.
So they don't revisit it. Oh, yeah, well, I watch these people.
These days it's easier. Just feed them into the machine.
That's what I thought maybe
when I tried it
dried up, etc. So who do you have next on Racing Across America?
Top of the hour, we'll be joined by Joe Christofek, paddock commentator down at the fairgrounds. We'll get some of his thoughts on the stakes action today, and a little bit later on, Jeremy Plonk, Countdown to the Crown, his first visit of the season to talk 3-year-olds overall, and he'll look at the Lecomte today down at Fairgrounds.
And just as a complete sidebar, as I get out of here, I know they mentioned the Prince of Wales Stakes, and it's going to be that Tuesday, and I am making a very concentrated effort that I'm not going to, even if the Rams play home, I'm not lingering in Southern California. I've been trying to make this Fort Erie trip.
Fort Erie's fun. Stop by the Tiki Bar. I was in the Tiki Bar, and people recognized me.
The power of the media. Power of this. He stays, I go, ladies and gentlemen. Enjoy your Saturday of racing.
You're watching OTB TV, a service of Capital Off Track Betting.